Hi, I'm Jacqueline Isaacs, also known as the Unsmug Mum and jacquelineisaacs.co.uk, and in my previous video I began to talk about glucose and starch, which is essentially glucose as well, because if we just have a quick recap, we have glucose, our simple sugar, our monosaccharide, which is a nice straightforward one glucose molecule, one sugar molecule, and then we have starch, which is our polysaccharide, poly meaning many, saccharide meaning sugar, so many sugars all holding hands. But we learned a little bit about our spit, and we learned that the bonds between these dudes is really easily broken, and it only requires a drop of water, a drop of our spit, for the bonds, for these little guys to let go of each other and turn into many separate sugars. So the digestion of starch begins to happen in the mouth. Now, I will put this on my Facebook page, which is a variation of my beautiful gut drawing, and we will remember what we did if I hold up the fibre one, and we talked about fibre and that we do not digest fibre, and that gets all the way through from our mouth, through our stomach, through our 22-foot long intestines, and through our poo factory, all the way out the other end. And we compare sugars and starches. Sugar's already sugar, and starch only takes a drop of water, drop of our spit to turn it into sugar. Begins to happen in the mouth, largely happens in the mouth. So we can appreciate it's not really going to get that far. It's not going to take very long at all to get into our bloodstream, to get into our system. It's going to shoot through really fast, because remember, glucose is great. Glucose is gimme, gimme, gimme. It's our body's preferred source of energy. Our body and brain prefer it. All, every bit of our body can use it. So we are geared up to grab that glucose and let it shoot on through whenever it's in our diet. So we can begin to appreciate that starch, without any fibre, and in essence is able to turn into sugar pretty much straight away. It will whiz through. I mean, if we remember that I've compared our gut lining to a sieve or a plug hole, if there is nothing to impede it, it's going to be like rushing water down that plug hole. It's just going to disappear unimpeded into our body. Now, the reason that we need to be a little bit aware of that, and it's not just for metabolic diseases such as diabetes, obviously we need to start to maybe appreciate when it comes to things like that, we can get those sugary highs and lows from starchy carbohydrates just as much as we can from straight old sugar, because remember, starch digests so quickly that it's pretty much the same thing. What we need to bear in mind is how we generally consume our starchy carbohydrates these days, and what we imagine when we think of what are starchy carbohydrates. These days, us clever humans, we have really built machines to do some of our digesting for us. We have taken away a lot of that nature's packaging, but we have done more than that. We haven't just taken away nature's packaging. In fact, that would make things a little bit more straightforward. What we have done, without really appreciating the fact and really registering it, is we have concentrated the starchy carbohydrates. What do I mean by that? Well, if we compare and use our fruit and our fruit juice analogy again. So if we imagine maybe how much fruit would we consume as a snack, really? How many oranges could you really sit there and eat in one go? Let's imagine one orange. Yeah, let's imagine an easy pill satsuma or something that you might put in your kid's lunchbox. Consumed in its whole form, because remember, fibre, the mother's nature's packaging, is bulky. Yeah, it bulks things out. That's a good thing. What we do is we take that bulk away. So what we do is we juice that, we squeeze that juice out of that fruit, and we then can get rid of that bulky packaging and concentrate the juice from as many as, 2 dozen oranges into that nice swiggable glass of juice. So suddenly, we, instead of consuming the sugar of one orange, because that's pretty much probably all we would manage in its bulky fibrous form, we have then given ourselves the ability to consume about 24 oranges in one go, in one easy glass. Yeah, so this is what I mean when I say we are concentrating those sugars and those carbohydrates. And pretty much, excuse me while I swap hands, because I'm not spending out on a selfie stick. We have pretty much done the same thing when it comes to our starchy carbohydrates. Yeah, so remember, I'm a big fan of Mother Nature. She likes to package her sugars with the appropriate amount of fibres to help us. And us humans not only take that packaging away, we concentrate the most calorific, sugary aspect of that carbohydrate, i.e. the starch in starchy carbohydrates. So if we can imagine foods like potatoes with their skins on, and grains as they appear in nature, we have removed a lot of that, or those fibre, that bulky fibre. We've removed a lot of that with our machines. So in a sense, we could say that we have built machines that do some of our digesting for us. So really, the digestion doesn't just happen in the mouth, it's happened before you've even bought it from the shop shelf. It's partially digested for us. Machines have done that for us. Nice one. But they've done more than that. They haven't just taken away Mother Nature's packaging. What we've done is we have concentrated, like the squeezed fruit juice, we have concentrated the starch component of our carbohydrates into things like flour, a fine white powder that essentially, I mean, if you visualise that flour quite literally in a sieve, it's going to sift on through really, really easily. It's the same thing in our body, and if we consider that that flour is largely starch, even the ones that claim to be whole wheat, whole grain, they might have had a little bit of oat bran or whatever put back in. It's not as much fibre as it was originally wrapped with. We have concentrated that into a fine white powder, which, just like the 24 oranges in a glass or whatever it might be, we have reduced it down into a concentrated form and then made other things from it. So our breads, our pastas and whatever, our meat coatings, our breadcrumbs and our batters and all of that. So, you know, we have created the carbohydrate component of our meal. So if, for instance, we're thinking in terms of like maybe a pizza base, for instance, the bulk of that meal is not only a starchy carbohydrate, but is a concentrated starchy carbohydrate, yeah, and then maybe we might have some chips with that. Oh, we'll have some carbohydrate with our carbohydrate, and then maybe we've got some deep fried chicken wings or something which has probably got flour. Either, you know, you meat these days is either mixed with, wrapped or flavoured with some sort of flour containing substance, whether it be breadcrumbs, batter, sauces. I mean, a lot of our sauces, our flavours and that are mixed with flours because it's a great thickening agent. So you can then start to appreciate, when we go back to appreciating, hold on, my phone's playing up. There we go. I'm back. If we go back to appreciating that starch pretty much digests and breaks apart into the mouth into the simple sugars with the addition of our spit, we can begin to appreciate that just like the glass of freshly squeezed orange juice that's got rid of all of the mush of those fibrous packaging, all that bulk, we've got rid of that, we've concentrated it down, we can appreciate that maybe it's not that we have to be low carb or anti-carb, it's that we are unknowingly high carb. And I think this is the issue. I mean, there are starchy carbohydrates in nature. Potatoes are wrapped in skins. You know, you think pulses and beans and that. I mean, we all know what beans are famous for, and, you know, the fibre that is naturally packaged with. How grains look in nature, yeah? So I still eat, ultimately, regardless as to whether it's gluten-free or not, because even if, you know, if, for instance, I'm having a gluten-free product, it's still made from starches, it's just that starches are maybe from rice and potatoes instead of wheat, that's all. So there's no difference between gluten-free and just your bulk standard wheat. In fact, there's probably less additives in the normal wheat versions. There's no, you know, what was I going to say? The starch is going to whiz on through, and what we need to think is not that we need to stop eating those things, it's we need to maybe pay attention to putting that fibre back. So it's what we combine them with. So one of I believe the main way that I have lost my 20 odd pounds worth of excess weight and maintained it for the last month or so, hopefully carry on maintaining now that I've got this firmly clicked up there, is it's really the fibre. It's the hairy, porridgey plug hole effect, because let's also bear in mind that not only is our gut lining a bit like a sieve in a series of plug holes, that the porridgey, hairy, porridgey plug hole is going to slow down that sugar release, our stomach is a bit like a sink with a plug hole at the bottom, yeah? It's, if we've got a hairy, porridgey plug hole in our sink, it's going to stop that being emptied so quickly, so it'll keep me fuller for longer as well. Plus the fact we don't digest fibre goes all the way to the end and triggers our appetite reducing hormone after the 22-foot long intestines, feeds our good guys in our poo factory, sweeps some of the excess energy maybe out along with it as well, yay. Just a little note of caution to finish on is obviously it is all down to boring balance, and that I am definitely not recommending just going out in there and eating a plate full of fibre, a plate full of veg or whatever. We can go too much the other way. Let's remember that fibre is not going to differentiate between the good foods and the bad foods. If it's sweeping some of the sugars out along with it, it will sweep out some of the good stuff as well. And obviously we need to keep that balance right, because too much the other way and we could give ourselves issues with not absorbing the right nutrients and the fibre taking it along with it. So it is all about boring balance. But I think one of the keys to my weight loss this time is that I always ensure if I am consuming sugar, whether it be as sugar or in the form of starchy carbohydrate, I always consume it with something fibrous. So maybe my salad, my vegetables, my whole fruits. Yeah. Hope that helps. I'll record the next one soon, and I think maybe it's good time in the next one I will probably talk about where I went wrong, because if any of you followed me previously on my typewritten blog before, you'll know that I've known a lot of this for a long time, but I still put on weight. So where was it where I went wrong? I'll explain that in the next one. See ya.